Good evening and welcome to First Thursdays at the Marin County Law Library. We're delighted to have folks tonight, this first week after what started the holiday rush, and we appreciate the fact that not everyone may be able to join us live tonight. So I'd like to remind people that you can access this recording at a later date by going to YouTube. And believe it or not, the Law Library actually has its own channel set up there. And we would be delighted for you to take a look at it at any time that's convenient for you. I'd like to make a couple of housekeeping announcements before we get started. First off, I'd like to thank our law librarian, Lori, who continues to make these programs possible. I teased our guests tonight about probably normally being on the way home, and I know the same would be true for Lori, but Lori goes beyond everyday responsibilities by helping host these. She also is in charge of lawyers in the library. She made sure that that came back to life after COVID on Zoom. So I'd like to take a moment to extend my appreciation for her always being enthusiastic for public outreach. The library would not be what it is without Lori and her staff. On that note, I'd like to mention to you that our biweekly program, Lawyers in the Library, will next be on December 9th. I will remind folks that this is a short, somewhat abbreviated month because of the holidays, but again, we will have Lawyers in the Library on December 9th. That's 4:30 to 6:30. I would invite you to take a look at our webpage. Registration is required, but it's fairly easy. And as I just spoke about Lori, no one is more enthusiastic about helping people walk their way through this. Tonight we're lucky enough to have three of the wonderful folks from Legal Aid of Marin County joining us. That is Tahira Dean, Lucy Hollingsworth, and Ellen Moskowitz. We should touch briefly on what Legal Aid's mission is, and that is to create an equitable Marin by empowering the community through legal representation, advocacy, and education. What is legal aid? The idea of civil legal aid is the assistance of counsel and legal advocacy for people living at or near poverty in legal matters that fall outside of the criminal justice system. For people facing civil liberty challenges or legal challenges, such as unlawful evictions, foreclosure, domestic abuse, or wrongful denial of government assistance, navigating the justice system without a lawyer can seem impossible, and sometimes it is. There may be language barriers, there may be financial barriers, understanding how to do filings, understanding how to access the law. This puts justice out of reach for low-income people and undermines the fundamental principle of our nation, and that is that the amount of money a person has should not determine the quality of justice they receive. The three individuals that are here tonight represent a program that helps ensure fairness in the justice system. It's estimated that almost 47 million and more than 1 in 5 children live in or near poverty in the United States. The legal aid providers you're meeting tonight help protect the rights of millions of Americans with low income each year in areas such as housing, consumer, family, education, and employment. And they defend access to services for all people of all backgrounds. That includes children, veterans, victims of domestic violence, the elderly, and those living with disabilities. What is the mission of Legal Aid of Marin? To provide access to the civil justice system to low-income, vulnerable, and otherwise underserved residents of Marin County. They strive for practical solutions to client problems through quality legal service. This organization was formed in 1958 to provide low-income Marin County residents direct representation, pro-per assistance, pro bono services, and to serve their interests through impact litigation. May I invite you all to join us in welcoming Tahira Dean, Lucy Hollingsworth, and Ellen Moskowitz. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you for that fantastic introduction, Renee. So again, I'm Lucy Hollingsworth. I'll get us started tonight. And there we go. And so, tonight the three of us are gonna talk about just a few of our services, but we do a lot more than what you'll hear about in depth tonight. So, along with employment law, eviction defense, and the fines and fees work that we're going to talk about tonight, we also have a wills and trust consultations for low-income seniors. We help with public benefits, especially wrongful denials. Ellen will actually speak a little bit more about this, but it's a rather new service for us, but a very important one for Marin County, which is elder financial abuse. And we do encourage all Marin residents, low-income Marin residents, to contact us with any legal issue, because we strive to give warm handoffs to the people that can help. And we're thankful that here in Marin County, we have a lot of generous private attorneys that are also sometimes willing to take on people's cases for free. So first, I'm going to talk tonight about our Marin Community Court. And that is a collaboration with the Superior Court and St. Vincent de Paul. And we just had our 10-year anniversary. And so what it is a collaborative court that tries to bring court to the community. And so pre-pandemic, for 10 years, or 9 years, the court was held once a month at St. Vincent de Paul Dining Room. And it's where low income and homeless residents can come address their infractions, whether it's a lifestyle ticket that is predominantly issued to our unhoused folks, such as camping tickets, drinking in public, smoking in public, dogs off leash, tickets like that, but also traffic tickets and parking tickets. For example, a jaywalking ticket that tends to only be given to unhoused folks here, because I've certainly jaywalked plenty of times throughout San Rafael, but the fee for that is over $500. And when you don't respond to those tickets, when you don't show up for court or pay your fine, your license can get suspended, your driver's license. The fees keep going up, and it really just creates further barriers, putting people in poverty. All participants receive free representation for the day for their community court appearance. So we get a lot of pro bono attorneys helping us to help people speak in front of our volunteer judge, Judge Wood, who is an acting judge in the dependency court here in Marin County. She is actually the one that started this program, and we're certainly thankful for her leadership in it. And so these are just the logistics. Right now we are finally remote, which is one of those silver linings of the pandemic, that this has created more accessibility for people that may have moved out of county, who are homeless and don't have transportation. We are able to have the attorney consultations as well as appearances before the judges remote. There's still some people that would prefer in person that don't have that access to technology. So every month I go to St. Vincent de Paul still, to the dining room, and help people in person speak to the judge. The eligibility is there's the low income guidelines, which is true for most of our services. The participants have to accept that they are pleading guilty in these cases. And, that's always kind of a tough pill to swallow, especially with these lifestyle tickets, because, we certainly think that these tickets shouldn't be handed out in the first place. But it does provide us the opportunity to collaborate with law enforcement and get some cross training as far as, how can we address homelessness without criminalizing their situation. So that is always a work in progress. And the participants have to have at least one infraction issued in Marin County, but often people come with issues in other counties, and we can also usually help with those as well. And sometimes it just takes a letter to a judge, and for example, Sonoma County saying, and hey, they're doing extra community service hours here in Marin, so can you clear their traffic fine or other ticket in your county? And usually those judges are amenable. And what's not eligible yet, I'm always working on that, is misdemeanors, DUIs, fast track violations, any probation, parole violations, and felonies. But we certainly give referrals, and we help in-house with things like fast track violations. We especially see fast track violations for people that are living in Southern Marin and Marin City. The job opportunities are better in the East Bay and in San Francisco. And so having to, cross that bridge, deal with a transponder and often it's seniors that need to get to UCSF for medical issues. It's been a really difficult transition for many low income people in Southern Marin to not have humans at those toll booths. And fast track, I don't know if anyone has received those violations, but they quickly go from the $7 toll to $80 if you don't pay that within a couple months. And so we really work hard to bring those down. The other thing about fast track is that they have the ability, we are certainly working that on a statewide level, but a private company, they have the ability to put a hold on your registration. And often that's how people find out that they even have fast track violations, is that they try and get their registration renewed, and instead of the few $100s that it normally costs, they're looking at thousands of dollars in order to get their registration. And so we do what we can to get those cars registered. And community court, the judge likes to say that it's not a get out of jail free card. She doesn't like repeat customers, so to speak, but we always campaign for people that have been through the community court process before to come back, whether they were unable to complete it when they were when they participated before. Often it has to do with maybe drug issues or mental health issues that they were unable to complete it. And so usually we're pretty successful in campaigning for people's return to community court. And then this is how you sign up. Tomasa Vida is our community court coordinator. He's fantastic. You can also go to our website. You can give him a call, shoot him an email. We try to make it as barrier-free as possible. We also do in-person intakes at Marin City once a week. We're at St. Vincent de Paul once a week during their help desk hours on Wednesday afternoons. And really any of our outreaches, which my colleagues will also mention, is always an opportunity to get more information and get an intake started for community court. And Tomas even made this QR code. I just learned that you do not take a picture of a QR code to make it work. Very proud of myself. But again, as I said, these are the in-person signups that often, people still like to do things in person and be able to ask their questions and we, just like community court was founded on taking court to the community and going to where the people are, so our services, our intakes. And I will turn it over to Tahira.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here with you guys tonight. Once again, I am Tahira. I'm a housing attorney at Legal Aid of Marin. I am part of a team we have 2 housing attorneys, myself and supervising attorney, and then we have 3 paralegals. So we are a small team, but we are mighty and that we're able to get a lot of cases churned out. Yeah, if you ever, wonder, why it's taking another day to get a call back, that's the reason. Is because we just have really, a small team. But as an overview, wanted to go over what we generally can provide for people. We work on eviction defense. So if someone's being evicted, gets a 3-day notice, we help them go through the court process in housing court to help them stay in their homes. We help people with rental increases, habitability issues like mold, rats. Usually it has to be really, really bad habitability issues, but we are able to help people, negotiate and help advocate for themselves to get the landlord to do certain repairs. Any harassment from landlords or managers, we're able to help the tenant, stand up for themselves, to work through the issues that they have with their landlord. We don't help people with, for example, if you have problems with your neighbors, we're not able to do that. We're not able to affirmatively sue landlords. So if someone doesn't have any, existing matter in housing court, we're not able to go to court on their behalf. So, we are limited in some things we're able to do, but generally anyone, that has a housing issue and as a tenant, we definitely welcome them to come and talk to us and see if we can help them out or at least point them in the right direction. I did want to go over today, what's kind of happening with the eviction side of things. A lot of people right now are, as it's not a shocker, aren't able to pay their rent. And we did want to just provide a little bit of information about the eviction process, about the current state of, evictions and what's happening with people with rental increases and all of that. It's just going to be high level, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask at the end or email me. We'll provide emails at the end. So the eviction process is very misunderstood. A lot of people think that once their landlord serves them with a notice to an eviction notice, a 3-day notice, 30-day notice, 60 days, that that the sheriff is going to be the one that's going to come next to get them out of there. But that's not how it works. Before an eviction can be processed in court, a landlord must provide the tenant with the notice of the eviction. That's first, and at the end of that period of however many days that notice says, then the landlord can proceed to court and file what's called an unlawful detainer, and that's the eviction complaint. Step 3 is when after a judge has heard both parties and has determined that an eviction can be processed, that's when the sheriff / manager, the landlord, can have the right to lock a tenant out of the property. So it is a very long process, and we do help individuals that are eligible for our services. We do help, handhold them through that whole process, or we're able to represent them depending on the situation. In the last, since I guess the last year, since August of 2020, I'll be specific, there have been a lot of protections that are in place to keep people housed in the state of California specifically. And that program went from August of 2020 and it just ended in September of 2021 of this year. What it did, it helped people to only pay 25% of their missed payments. And they were able to submit a COVID-19 declaration form saying, I've been affected by COVID-19. I'm not able to pay my rent. By doing those two things, paying the 25% and submitting those declarations, they were protected from eviction. But come, beginning October 1st, that whole bit protections went away. So currently, we don't have any eviction protections for people that are not able to pay rent. So beginning October 1st, we did start to see landlords try to begin evicting tenants who are not able to pay their rent. However, for those tenants that did all the steps to protect themselves for debt that was owed before October 1st, if there's any unlawful detainers filed in court, those individuals are pretty much protected as long as they took those steps to protect themselves and also applied for rental assistance through the county. And so this page is just basically saying, if someone's application is pending, the UD is going to be paused. If someone's application is approved, then that unlawful detainer is going to go away. And so we are seeing that's happening, that people are saved by the previous protections. Going forward, we are starting to see people get more and more eviction notices, but because people are able to still continue to apply for rental assistance through Marin County, people are able to stay housed for a bit longer. They can make deals with their landlords. And we're not seeing people actually be evicted because either people are able to move out, make deals with their landlords, or we're able to tell the landlord, hey, the money is coming, rental assistance is processing this. So, there's still good things happening from the effects of that moratorium. Also, protection's still in place. There are no late fees on that old back rent, that old debt before October 1st. Landlords can't use security deposit to cover that back rent. Landlords can't use the current rent to satisfy that back rent. So still have a bit of protections in place. Going forward, everyone must be paying their full rent. Landlord can provide only a 3-day notice to say, hey, pay or you have to leave, instead of before they were able to give 15 days. But once we see a client come to us with that 3-day notice, we're able to work with our county contacts and say, hey, put this on your radar. This person is getting closer to being evicted. Can we check on their case and able to get a better status update on that situation? So definitely, we still want people to come, to us, even if they know that they are in the scary period of can't pay my rent, eligible for eviction. There is still hope through the rental assistance program. We do want people to know that, they still have rights, especially in terms of rent freezes. There is a rent increase freeze for certain areas of Marin, effective until December 31st. So that, there's a specific map that the county has created. And I usually send that link out to my clients, or I use it to search myself and see if the area that they're living in is protected. If someone is not in those protected areas with that rent increase freeze, then there is a general cap of 8.8% increase. That is still really large, but we have that protection. Other people that don't fall into that protection area, but 8.8%, it falls into another protection of 10% cap, because we're in a state of emergency. So, if anything, that there shouldn't be any increases in rent above 10%. And yeah, so once we do get those notices of rent increase from our clients, we're able to see if the landlord even gave the notice in a proper way. And so it's important that, our clients bring the documents to us so we can vet that and make sure that they're given the proper notice, because then they can get more time to be able to pay that new amount. Of course, all tenants are protected from harassment, threats of deportation, or retaliation. So if anyone is dealing with those issues, there are laws to protect you. And we recognize that it is scary to address the landlord directly and face them, especially with legal, with the lawyers get involved. But it does really help immensely. It helps to put the landlords into check and make sure that they understand that they can't, be bullies, they can't take advantage of people. And it's, we've seen a lot of positive results from our intervention of just simply writing a letter or picking up the phone and communicating with that landlord or manager. It makes a really big difference. And so really important of, how are we keeping our tenants out of court completely? Number one is helping them apply for rental assistance. There are several organizations in Marin County. We can all send that list around to anyone who wants it, but where they're able to, where individuals are sitting down with the laptops and helping people fill out the application. For anyone that just wants to go online and fill out the rental assistance application themselves, they can totally do that at marincounty.org/rental assistance. But that's a really great way to be able to, get people to, be able to stay in their house longer by just helping them pay the rent. We also provide people with tenants' rights workshops to prevent self-evictions. A lot of people are scared of confronting their landlords. And when they have big issues, for example, habitability issues, the mold is persistent, they just are too scared to confront the landlord. But we are trying to teach people how to stand up for themselves, what laws are protecting them, and just be able to provide those workshops to more and more people is going to help people have the courage to fight back when there's been any injustices. We also encourage people to utilize the district attorney's landlord-tenant mediation program. That is obviously, not obviously, but it's a free service that people can utilize, and you'll have a mediator that will work between you and your landlord on a lot of the issues that we deal with as well. That's just another way to avoid using lawyers. And just have a neutral individual between both parties. We work with local nonprofits to help people not only get rental assistance, but also other social services like, people that need that might need medical care, mental health issues. They might need other additional support for their families, for their children. We're able to help connect them to those different organizations. We also work on policy reform to preserve existing affordable housing and create more. That's super, super important because, as I said, we don't currently have any existing moratorium in place because the lawmakers, they didn't feel like it was, necessary to continue fighting for that. But, we are continuing at a local level within Marin to be able to have our local representatives, provide for us and make sure that they understand what the folks that are residing in Marin County, that what they need to be able to stay housed and in safe and comfortable homes. So here's just a few additional websites. Our website, Tenants Together, is a great resource, and then Marin County's website. That is my email address, and I'm always happy to answer questions directly from folks, or connect you to other people that will be able to help. We also have bilingual staff too, for anyone that needs that. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Ellen right now.
Thank you, Tahira and Lucy, and thank you, Library of Marin, for inviting us tonight. Our team at Legal Aid basically has two areas of law that we're involved in, although we're basically Victims of Crime Act workers. And under the Victims of Crime Act, the primary thing we do is help employees in this county who need help with unemployment issues and appeals, wage and hour violations, discrimination, and any other workplace issues. Don't go on yet, Tahira. We're also involved in labor trafficking and participation with the Marin County Commission on Labor Trafficking. And you may be shocked to learn that labor trafficking does exist in Marin County, and the disparity between employers and employees in the county run deep. And so that's a big part of what we do. We help a significant amount of people in the immigrant community who are often scared to file wage claims or actions with unemployment because they're concerned it may affect their status in this country. Okay. We also help with unemployment claims and appeals. During the pandemic, we had to do this a lot. There were a huge number of people filing for unemployment applications and an equally huge number of denials, often for mysterious reasons. So we did end up in a coalition with groups around the state to manage all these unemployment appeals and have a fast track direct route to the head of the EDD to help our clients. And so we were pretty busy with that. Similarly to what Tahira pointed out a few minutes ago, the extended unemployment benefits also ended on September 30th, 2021. So at the moment, most of our clients who were getting unemployment benefits have now stopped. We also help with Social Security, getting SDI, and getting other public benefits that Lucy mentioned, such as CalFresh, help with Medicare, mental health services, and so on. And now I'm going to go on to the second part of our of what we also do under the Victims of Crime Act, which is as of last June, we now have a special grant to help seniors who are the victims of financial elder abuse. And I'll be touching on what that means after I go through the employment stuff. I'm not going to spend too much time on unemployment since, you know, that isn't a big thing we're getting right now. However, you are back to, if you haven't worked within the last year, you're probably eligible if you've lost your job to apply for unemployment. We help people who don't have the computer technology or the capacity to continue to certify their unemployment claims every couple of weeks. So we do offer in-person services to help people apply for unemployment benefits and represent them in appeals when they've been denied. Next. Yeah, thanks. Wage theft is our other big amount of the time that we work on at Legal Aid of Marin. And this constitutes things like the failure to even pay people the wages are owed. We represent a lot of day laborers in Marin County who go and work for somebody for a week, for 3 days, you know, for whatever. And at the end, they don't pay what they promised to pay, which of course is against the law. It violates minimum wage requirements, and there are severe penalties that go along with the payment of the wages. We always try and negotiate with an employer first. We're not trying to punish employers, but we do want to remind them of their responsibilities, and they can't use an excuse like, oh, they did bad work as a reason for not paying people, because as all of us who have had jobs, we know there's a remedy for when you don't do good work, and that's called being discharged or getting fired. But it doesn't mean you don't pay people for the work they actually did. We also deal with a lot of employers who just pay for straight time. Somebody might work 10 hours a day and they don't pay a time and a half rate over 8 hours in a day. The law is if you work over 8 hours in a day, even if it's not 40 hours in a week, you're entitled to overtime pay, which is time and a half. The law also provides in California that every employee who works at least 6 hours a day be given a mandatory meal period, mandatory meal period of 30 uninterrupted minutes every day of their workday between the 5th and 6th hour of work. It's important that workers take this benefit that they have, but it's actually mandatory. It is not something that can be waived. A rest period break, which you're also entitled to, 2 10-minute rest periods in an 8-hour day, that can be waived. You can decide, nope, I'm too busy, don't want to take it today, and that's fine. Your employer doesn't owe you anything. But if you don't have an opportunity to take a meal period because you're too busy, or while you're having lunch, your boss calls you on the phone and says, I need you to stop what you're doing for a minute and send me this or send me that. Your meal period's been interrupted. And the penalty for that is employers owe an extra hour's penalty for that missed meal period. We also do failure to pay reimbursement for wages and so on. We help workers fill out those wage claims with the labor commissioner. Again, many of the people we see are Spanish speaking. Our staff speaks Spanish and helps them fill out the forms, whether in English or in Spanish. And then we always put that we represent them for the wage claim hearings. And so, so far this year, we've collected over $1 million in back wages on behalf of maybe 200 different workers in Marin County. They could be anywhere in an average for somebody of $400 all the way up to $50,000, depending on what their particular situation was. So we fight very vigorously for our clients, and that's a big part of what we do. Next, thanks. One of the things we also do is we try and help people protect their rights on the job before there's a problem. Legal Aid of Marin, I should have had one that I could have held up here and showed you our new day labor pocket calendars. They're in both English and Spanish, and it's for particularly people who work for a lot of different employers every day or every week, to get the basic information about the job they're going to do. And so it's a place where they can enter that information on a daily basis. What was the name of this person you worked for? What's the address where you work? What's the name of the boss? Do you have their address and phone number? What are you going to be paid per day? All of those kind of things are really important to keep track of so that we are able to do a successful wage claim. We're usually out at the canal every Tuesday morning from 8 to 11. We take walk-ins and appointments there. We also appear the second Thursday of the month at West Marin Community Center doing those kind of intakes, and also the North Marin Community Services Centers on most Mondays. We're usually there. I know the housing team is there every week, which is great. We try to be there every week, the employment and senior team. Okay, next. Okay, so the other new enterprise we've entered is financial elder abuse. And the main things we do under that heading are anything where seniors are the victims of a scam, a fraud, a manipulation by family members that take advantage of their money situation. And although I can't go into a lot of detail about it for tonight, I do want to mention that on December 16th, the West Marin Senior Services is having a 90-minute presentation with Marin County's public guardian, with the DA's office criminal division on frauds and scams on elders. And I'll be speaking in more details about some of the topics I'm going to touch on tonight, but you can register at the West Marin Senior Services.org online, and it is a free presentation, and it will be on Zoom, and it can hold up to 100 people. And my understanding is we already have 30 signed up so far, so I hope you'll all join us. So most of the way senior financial elder abuse is defined by the state of California is under California Welfare and Institution Codes, which protects elderly people 65 years or older and dependent adults from many types of physical abuse and neglect. Financial abuse occurs when somebody is taking your money that's supposed to be watching out for you, and they appropriate it for their own purposes. That can be by taking your money. It could be taking your items of value. It could be selling real estate out from under you that you don't know anything about. All of that would fall under that category. And unfortunately, the people who are usually in that position of trust that are taking these monies are often people's children, grandchildren, siblings, and so on, where the person is in a sort of dependent state of care and is really relying on this person to be a real fiduciary of their assets, and that doesn't happen. So we've had several of those cases we've been involved with. They're always emotional, sticky, family dynamics, but we're there to help not only with the legal issues, but also any social services that the senior may need about getting taken care of. Next. Okay. I'm not going to go through all of the details of financial elder abuse, but again, if you feel that somebody is getting taken advantage of by a family member, by a partner, by a caregiver, let us know about that, and we'll certainly get involved, and if necessary, get the public guardian involved. We've also, so just some of the situations we've had is a woman who's found to have what the law says is testamentary capacity to determine who she wants to leave her finances to or who she wants to oversee them, but she doesn't understand anything personally about her finances and has no understanding of, what's being paid out on her behalf. And numerous siblings were draining her resources till she basically had nothing, and that was something we had to help take care of, but we did to her happiness. We also have a situation where a caretaker of a man with dementia wants to get a conservatorship of the person in the estate, again, to control this person, and has cut him off from all potential family. We've had another case where a man wants to adopt another man as his son to give him his inheritance. They're not in any kind of romantic relationship or long-term friends. It's a little puzzling, but again, we try and help the person sort out what their true intentions are and give them our best advice and help them if we can. And if not, they can do what they want to do most of the time. Next. So we're also involved in a lot of frauds and scams on the elderly. And I'm sure a lot of us have been the victims of it, whether you're elderly or not, a lot of these scams that are out there. And again, I'll go into each one of these in much more detail at the December 16th presentation. But for a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, who may be living alone and maybe want the companionship of somebody and they seek it online, there are an extreme amount of people who are scamming, mostly older women, but definitely men as well, who they perceive as having money, and they manufacture a whole online romantic relationship until the red flag should go up when they ask you for money, or they're having an emergency or a family crisis. Those are kind of things to avoid, and we'll talk about that. There's obviously a lot of tech support scams. I get calls all the time from somebody telling me they're from my tech support team and they have to check on stuff. And, that's usually a quick indication that if you don't know who this person is from tech support, you probably don't want to talk to them. Next. We've also already talked a little bit about family stuff. I'm sure you've heard in the papers or on the radio about the relative family scam, where somebody calls who sounds like your grandchild or your child. They prey on the elderly who are afraid something bad is happening for their family member, and that they need to get money right away to get out of this dire situation. Always call the police when you get that kind of an urgent call from a relative. Always verify with that person who is supposedly being held captive. If they really are, call them. It's amazing how many times people transfer money without even verifying if the person is actually, okay or not. Again, we do government impersonation scams. People send you things saying they're the IRS or Social Security. They need to check on something for you. No government agency will ever reach out to you in an email alone or a phone call. Okay, next. Sweepskate, charity, lottery scams. We'll talk about that more on the 16th. Home repair scams. You might have somebody come to your door and tell you they can help with your bad roof, your painting, and so on. They request a deposit and then they never come and do the work. That's a scam. Next. Thanks. We can move on. We talked about that. So some of the ways real quick to protect yourself out there that we recommend to seniors or just about anybody from all these various scams out there is change your passwords at least once a year, and don't change them by just a couple letters or just a couple numbers. Try not to do what I do, which is, often use grandchildren names. I've stopped doing that in my passwords. Pick something, that's maybe an animal, a vegetable, something that's hard to guess if somebody's trying to crack your passwords. Prune your accounts down. Don't, try and close out the accounts you don't really use anymore, so there isn't that identity fraud. Again, upgrade your password quality. Never use the same thing twice. And when you're talking about buying gift cards or things like that, try and buy from reputable sellers out there with actual reviews and things where they use real credit cards and not scam ways of paying. Next. Keep going. So again, I definitely wanted to leave time now for questions for anybody you'd like to ask questions of.
May I briefly draw attention of our listeners and also Lori, the web page that you were referencing for West Marin Senior Services, if you go to wmss.org, you will find the listing for the upcoming event on the 16th under Don't Be a Victim of Fraud, an online workshop. Lori, I've sent you a link to that, and I'm going to propose that we put that on our Facebook page. And thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Did anybody have any questions for us?
Can I comment on something that Lucy brought to our attention, and that was what a fine for jaywalking was in Marin County, $500. Not so long ago, there was an article published that talked about the fact that many Americans would be hard-pressed to face an emergency expense of $400. Now, this was before COVID and the massive changes we've seen since then, but it really struck me when you told us what the cost of a jaywalking fine is for an individual. The statistics from the Fed survey on that indicated that 47% of Americans that they surveyed would be hard-pressed to bring together $400. And a jaywalking fine is $100 more.
You're right. You know, our participants, they're choosing, you know, do I pay this fine or do I pay my rent? And unfortunately, when they don't pay the fine, they lose their driver's license and can't get to work and can't pay their rent. So it's really a lose-lose situation. And the community court program, while, you know, it's near and dear to my heart, it's also an opportunity to really look at these onerous fines and try and make policy changes, which, you know, are happening all around us, and we're slowly chipping away here in Marin County as well. You know, this isn't happening so much anymore since the pandemic, but law enforcement used to actually sit outside of St. Vincent de Paul during lunchtime, which is where many of our unhoused residents gather at the time for a hot lunch, to charge their cell phones, to meet with other people, meet with their case managers, and just pick them off with jaywalking tickets. And so I went to go talk to them, to San Rafael PD. Lynn Murphy, who's with San Rafael PD, which you all might be familiar with, is sort of their social services officer, and she's excellent. And they thought, well, we're just trying to get them connected to services. You know, everyone that's familiar with community court knows that it's a holistic program. It's never just a jaywalking ticket. It's never just a speeding ticket. There's always much more underlying issues. So someone can come to me and say, well, I have this, you know, I get off at work at 3 and I have to pick up my kids based on this custody order by 3:15, or I don't get to see my kids at all. So really, I need help with family law. And so to explain to law enforcement, hey, you're not actually helping the situation. You're making it worse by handing out these tickets. You know, it's small. There's progress made here and there, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or sometimes the other way around. But I'm hopeful.
It looks like there's a question from Doug Cooper.
Yeah, well, I just want to make one comment on what you just talked about, which is, I mean, of course, we all know this. That's so regressive to charge the same high price to everyone, which basically means if you're wealthy enough, you can just go ahead and do what you want, speed, you know, whatever, and it doesn't affect you. But it severely affects people with low income. Anyway, the question I had is, how do you coordinate your work and sort of split duties with for instance, fair housing advocates of Northern California and public defender's office and et cetera, all the different other services. You've mentioned some of them, the public guardian and so on, but do you guys work together, or do you sort of say, no, this is your case and we'll take that one?
We work together as much as possible. Something that's relatively new with legal aid is the idea of these holistic services. Just like lawyers still use fax machines, we're a little bit slow, but they are social services, and legal aid is also starting to recognize that. And we're really proud at Legal Aid of Marin that's really the cornerstone of our services. So we couldn't do our work without having a good relationship with the public defender, with the DA, Fair Housing of Northern California. Ellen's team is always in close contact with Legal Aid at Work and so many other organizations and supportive services. We certainly, because our clients are low income and often homeless or precariously housed, they come to us, they have mental health issues, drug issues. We couldn't serve them without the other case management and therapists and people like that that help us and help them. So we really appreciate that. Certainly, like for example, with fair housing, we do eviction defense. Fair housing handles, discrimination. And so often we'll share a client where we're handling one side of things and fair housing's handling the other.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Doug.
Good to see you too.
I have a question about, you mentioned early on that you do a consultation for wills and trusts for elders. Did I hear that right?
That is right. We've been doing that for a long time. We have a pro bono program. She's not here tonight. Laura manages our pro bono program, and part of that program sets up free consultations. We have a couple of volunteer attorneys that twice a week, and I'm afraid I don't know where, I believe now it's online, but we can get you more information on that low income seniors can get a consultation with wills and trust matters. We're hoping to expand that to be able to do more meaningful work in trust and wills. It's just like Ellen was talking about the financial elder abuse, having your paperwork in order, like powers of attorney, a trust, is so important in protecting yourself.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know.
Now that would be something I would love to see us do a collaborative effort on in the law library.
Yeah,
We will definitely put you in touch with her. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ellen.
No, I was just saying, yeah, we definitely love to know that there's a steady place and help set up with Laura and the pro bono program. Say that 3 times really fast. The pro bono program. That people knew, and we could constantly be advocating that, and making sure the lawyers are there to help people. And then throw our way when they see a complicated situation. I mean, the way we get some of these elder abuse cases is when the caretaker wants to call about changing their fundamental paperwork, or seeking a conservator, or suddenly seeking a trust, somebody where, we have to have the red flags up. Like, does this seem like a, like it smells right situation? We have to be really, really thoughtful and probative in the questions, because sometimes it's not as simple as just drafting a will or trust because somebody wants it. We really have to explore.
So Ellen, along that line, I have had on at least a couple of occasions an elder and a caretaker come into the library where they're asking me for these forms, so that they can make some changes. Who is the best person to call about that then? Should I would that be the DA's office or?
I wouldn't automatically do that, and you could refer them to us because
Okay,
I get those situations all the time, and the first thing I want to know is, well, you know, does this person have children alive? Do they have siblings alive? You know, I had to call a son in Ireland when this caretaker wanted to take over for a guy who was 92 and had 100% dementia. It was clear he didn't understand what was going on at all. And I had to call his son and tell him, you know, the caretaker came here and she wants me to just, you know, do this so she can help take care of him. And he was like, oh, no, absolutely not. You know, so you really have to ask the right questions in that situation. Or, you know, we get somebody who says, I'm the girlfriend of this guy and I've lived with him for 20 years now, but they don't have anything in writing, no durable powers of attorney, nothing. And again, oftentimes the children are like, no, we don't think she is out for his best interest. We are. And then who decides that? You know, oftentimes that is where we have to get the public guardian or an agency involved, because we can't make that judgment ourselves, right? Of who's the better person to take care of this person. But we want to get them the resources they need, or if we can help them, we do. So.
Yeah, that's good to know, because it can be a real touchy situation in the library. You know, it's the public library. I'm not really in a position to ask any personal questions, but certainly the red flags and the antenna goes off when somebody like that comes in, you know.
Yeah.
So thank you. I appreciate your answer. Any other questions?
The event that you've described coming up on the 16th seems so complimentary as a follow-up to what we've learned from you tonight. I certainly will look forward to it myself. Are there any more questions tonight?
I don't see any, Denise.
Well,
I'd like to take an opportunity to thank all of the lovely folks that came to us tonight from Legal Aid of Marin and shared their time so generously with us and the community. I wish you the best in your endeavors coming up. You nice folks sound incredibly busy, and I suspect that's not going to let up anytime soon.
Working on it. We would love to be put out of business. that's the goal. But it's been great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
A good evening to everyone, and this will be posted on the website. And again, thank you so much. This time next month, we're going to have the clerk and the district attorney's office talk about financial fraud via deeds here in Marin County. That's a program that they're putting on. And everyone is, of course, invited to join us then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Good night.